people with families, and they have mortgages, and they have to pay rent, they have to put food on the table. We've never seen a president do anything like this before. The vice president just said we have to lay off federal workers. Lay them off. I mean, not just furloughed because of this government shutdown. That's not true. They do not have to do this. They do not have to punish people that shouldn't find themselves in this position. And the reason they're here, though, is because this administration is about to drive our healthcare system for 23 million people over a cliff. When these subsidies go away, and they will, if we do not do something by December 31st, people's healthcare prices are going to triple.
All you have to do is vote yes for the clean CR. Senator Mark Kelly pointing a finger, though, at the GOP, with his own take on the government shutdown now in its 14th day.
And this, President Trump back from his whirlwind trip to the Middle East to posthumously award Charlie Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
So much to talk about this morning. Let's bring in our political panel. We're joined today by Democratic strategist Madeline Somerville and Julie Harris. She's the president of the National Federation of Republican Women. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is a good morning. So let's start off talking about peace in the Middle East. Your take on President Trump's presence on the world stage, which is a complete 180 from Joe Biden, Julie.
Absolutely. What we witnessed is what happens when you have bold, decisive leadership. In President Trump's first term, the Abraham Accords brought stability and commerce. Then we saw weak leadership and chaos in the Middle East on October 7th. And now President Trump has accomplished in 10 months what President Biden couldn't. And the world was the witness of peace through strength when those hostages were returned to their families. And what an emotional time for the whole world. And now to see Egypt giving their highest civilian honor to President Trump. And if my research is correct, it's been given to a few presidents, but I think only two as it relates to the Middle East and while they were in office. And I'd point out that out of the four, I believe, three of them, and then including President Trump, were Republican presidents.
Yeah, it's Jimmy Carter as well as Queen Elizabeth. Trump is the third, the trifecta, if you will.
Okay. Well, to your point, Julie, Trump basically did what previous administrations could not do. He undid all of the damage that they did as well. Madeline, I know you claim to not have Trump derangement syndrome. You said it in the past, so I could imagine you are very excited as to yesterday's news. But I'm curious to get your reaction. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, absolutely, I am. And I do think that it was bold, decisive leadership. In fact, scholars who have looked at this have said that because from a business perspective, he latched on to the yes, like we will exchange the hostages. He went, great, we will figure everything else out later. And as somebody who's been on the inside in Democratic negotiations, I can tell you that that's not something that they do. They want everything to be exactly in the right place before they move on because they're so afraid of getting flack from people about it. But if you know that what you're doing is right, you don't need to be afraid of the flack that you're going to get because you can move forward with respect and integrity. And I think that that's what he did here. And, as somebody, I don't believe in war in general, but I want to acknowledge everyone who has died here. But I think that this was a beautiful example of diplomacy, leadership. I like President Trump's diplomacy in general. We forget that he was in hospitality for a really long time, right? He knows how to take care of people. He knows what people want and how to make them feel like make them feel like they're in a place where they can relax and like they can be trusted. So I'm so happy.
Great point.
I love MAGA Democrats. Thank you so much for that.
Well, let's not go that far.
And you're not alone, Madeline. Why? Because Presidential Envoy for Special Missions, Richard Grenell, telling Newsmax that President Trump is the greatest deal maker ever. And you know what? We concur with that. But back to the government shutdown. Now in its 14th day, House Speaker Mike Johnson blasting the expiring Obamacare subsidies at the center of the budget standoff, calling it a, quote, boondoggle. Clearly, there's no end in sight when there should be, Julie. Why? Because all the Democrats have to do is vote for a clean CR that goes back to Biden's spending levels, but they're holding Americans hostage based upon politics. What say you?
I completely agree. That's exactly what's happening. The Democrats have done this clean CR many times. This is standard operating procedure. But now what they're doing is they're holding American economy, the government hostage while they demand a wish list for their radical supporters. This is not okay. I believe that Americans see through it. It's time to reopen the government. I'm grateful for President Trump not wasting this opportunity during this shutdown. He'll look for waste. He'll cut it. It looks like they have found money to pay our troops. That is very important. And so this is the Schumer shutdown, the Democrat shutdown. This is completely on their shoulders.
I won't say the legacy media, but people know who these people are. Chris Cuomo and Jake Tapper, both are blaming Dems for this government shutdown. So that's clearly a sign that this will not work out well for the Democrats.
Yeah, Madeline, given the fact that you're a Democrat, where do you think this will go?
Well, I usually love Chris Cuomo. I think he's very reasonable in his approach. Okay. But here's what I know is going on. And I'm not basing this off of anyone else's reporting. This is all my own research. Here's the fact, right? On October 15th, open enrollment starts for Obamacare and for federal health care subsidies. And it closes on November 1st. So Mike Johnson is correct that these healthcare credits that were the COVID era healthcare credits that were taken out in the big beautiful bill don't end until January 1st. But you have to know if you can afford your plan now, which is why the Democrats are quote unquote holding people hostage, which by the way, President Trump doesn't have to not give them back pay. There's a law guaranteeing it to them. He's the one that's holding us hostage. But I digress. So the issue here is, right, that the Democrats have asked the Republicans to come to the table to negotiate on this on this issue to try to say, hey, 77% of Americans want those tax credits back. Yes, we are overspending in general, but the Americans want to spend money on this. And the Republicans are saying, we don't want to do that. So they've been distracting the American people saying, oh, it's about healthcare for illegal immigrants. Well, that turned out to not be true. It was only less than 1% of the budget that was doing it. It was only for emergency care. Now they're saying it's just, they don't even know what to do. They're spinning in circles. So the issue here to me is that the Republicans are not telling the truth about what's actually going on because they know that it's an unpopular opinion for them to say we're not going to extend these tax credits. So I just want them to tell the truth.
Well, it might be unpopular if you actually come up to New York City, Madeline, and join Letitia James as she unites with New York City mayoral frontrunner Zohran Mamdani to fight the Trump administration. To New York Attorney General making her first public appearance, I should say, since her federal indictment, and was hardly quiet about it.
You see, I know what it feels like to be attacked for just doing your job. But I also know what it feels like to overcome adversity. And so I stand on solid rock. And I will not bow. I will not break. I will not bend. I will not capitulate. I will not give in. I will not give up.
But clearly, Julie, she will lie on a mortgage application. What say you?
Absolutely. She spent years weaponizing her office against President Trump. No one's above the law. And now that we know that she's allegedly guilty of bank fraud, rather than proving her innocence, she goes on the defense like this. It's disingenuous. It's ridiculous. Those defending her saying, well, everyone does it. That is not true. Everyone can afford 2 homes in 2 states and be the primary residence in both. This is ridiculous. I believe that the American people see through it. It's unfortunate for New York.
It really is. Madeline Somerville, Julie Harris, thank you.
Thank you.